Welcome everybody to our Cambridge Schools Conference online. My name is Charlotte Crochet-Cox and I am one of the events coordinators at Cambridge International. Today's panel session is called Remote Teaching and Learning for School Leaders. We are just going to go through a few settings at this point to check the webinar can run smoothly. So firstly, let me check you can hear me through a quick poll. Can you all hear me, yes or no? Okay, I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, looks like most of you can hear me, but if you can't, my colleague Kate has just put a message on the chat to help with your settings. Okay, let's have a look at the participant boxes that you can use during the webinar. In the panel to your right, you have the chat box that some of you have been using already. The chat box will be available throughout the webinar. Please use it if you have any questions. We will only answer questions during the Q&A sections, however, to make sure we keep to time. In the bottom center of your screen, you can find the status panel. The green tick means you're connected. You can also raise your hand to get our attention if we have missed your question, but as we are expecting a high volume of questions, please note we may not be able to answer all your questions during this webinar. I am now going to hand over to my colleague Anna Smith, Senior Education Manager at Cambridge International.
Well, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Anna Smith, and as my colleague Charlotte has just said, I'm Senior Education Manager here at Cambridge, based in Cambridge, and I'm also Director of the Cambridge Schools Conferences online. So it's a huge, huge pleasure to welcome you all to this workshop this morning. I'm going to leave my camera on just for a moment so that you know what I look like. I will then turn it off just to make sure that we don't lose any bandwidth and that you can all hear it. So I'm going to turn off that camera now. And I wanted to start with saying the same thing really that Rhonda Bondi, our keynote speaker, said last week. And that is a huge sense of gratitude to all the teachers and leaders who have been working so hard over the last year. I'm a former teacher and school leader myself. I spent 18 years doing that before I joined Cambridge. And I cannot imagine how much work and how much thinking and how much care all of you as school leaders must have put into the last year. And I want to send you my gratitude and my congratulations as a fellow member of the education community. Today is a chance to share, to hear from each other. We have a wonderful panel that includes both staff members from Cambridge and also teachers and trainers who have been leading schools this year. And there'll be a chance for you to ask questions and to share your good practice too. I wanted to very briefly start by giving some of my really key takeaways from Rhonda's talk last week. She really pointed out that what really matters is the quality of teaching, and the things we do may be quite similar to the things our teachers are doing in the classroom. She asked a really interesting question, which is, what are we going to keep? We're not going to go back to how things were before. We can't do that. When we move forward, what have we learned that we will keep because it's been valuable? As well as the things, of course, that we won't want to keep because they've been so difficult. And I also was really struck as a leader in the way that she explored engagement. I think sometimes it's tempting to walk into a classroom to watch students in that classroom, to see them nodding, to see them smiling, to see them looking busy. And we know that a lot of new teachers particularly feel that must mean the students are engaged. And I was really struck with how Rhonda unpacked that for us. And she helped us to think about engagement at a much deeper level. And I was really impressed by that. I really enjoyed what she had to say. I'd like very, very briefly, and I've said to the panel, just 30 seconds each, if they could tell me one thing from Rhonda's talk that really struck them. So Tabinda, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. So what struck me was the strategies that she shared for teachers, especially, the ABCM of planning lessons, the autonomy, sense of belonging, competence, and getting meaning into the lesson planning. So that I think was really handy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tabinda. I love that you stuck to the 30 seconds too. Big prize for that. Alka, over to you.
Thank you, Anna, for giving me the opportunity to share this. But I love the idea which Rhonda had shared for the teacher for setting tasks for kind of incorporating differentiated learning into the classroom, in the online mode especially. So having quality criteria of must-haves in the task and amazing, something amazing in the terms of what students can do through the task. So that was something which was a takeaway from me, certainly. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Anna.
Thank you, Alka. And yes, we're very lucky with Rhonda because she's an expert not only in online learning, but also in differentiation. So we were so lucky to be able to secure her as our keynote. And Maxine, was there something that really spoke to you?
Yes, I think Rhonda mentioned that online environment is just a type of environment, just like outdoor environment. So that really eases me and my colleagues that we understand that online environment are not something totally different from what we are familiar with. There are a lot of common skills we can use, both online and offline. But of course, like outdoor has its specific characteristic, online has something as well. So I think that point, although simple, but really it's just a light in our brain. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, when I was working with teachers on the use of IT in the classroom, that was what we always used to say, that it's just a tool. IT is another environment, it's another tool. It's not something we can use all our teaching skills. It's not something so different that our own skills can't come in. And yes, like you, Maxine, I loved that she said that. I'd really like to hear, however, what you, as a group of delegates this afternoon, have to say. So we're going to share now a Mentimeter, really nice tool for sharing thoughts quickly. Charlotte, if you could show us that slide with the, thank you, brilliant. So it's very simple. If you haven't come across this before, you just go to www.menti.com and you enter the code 91389431. We'll put that in the chat as well. And you just answer that question. And then it will start to make a word cloud for us so we can see what we as a group feel. And please do think about that either in teaching or as a leader. So I'll give you a few moments to do that. And when we start getting some submissions, we'll share the word cloud on the screen with you. And here we go with those. This tool was something one of our panelists yesterday, Claire Roper, who's a science teacher, who's doing a workshop next week. She shared this with us to start with. We hadn't come across it before, and so it's wonderful when you hear from our teaching community about great tools. And I can see immediately engagement is coming up there. I think that was probably the most powerful part of Rhonda's talk. Starting to see a few people here talk about flexibility. And I think that's really crucial, that ability, just as we would in a classroom, just as our teachers would in a classroom, to look at what's going on, to assess learning and change direction. And that's something we know our teachers can do, but it's something perhaps they feel they can't do online. And it was really great to hear Rhonda say, yes, we could. Engagement, flexibility now coming up enormously there. I'm looking at some other things. We've got communication. Group work is mentioned, and there may be some questions about that. We've had lots of questions about effective group work and how that can work in the last few days. Interesting too to see things like reflective, empathy, sharing ideas with staff as well. Yes, absolutely. Someone's put something here that I think is actually very profound, which is a long way but connected. And one of the things I want to keep as someone who's been involved a lot in teacher training and professional development is that sense that we are all part of one community when we're online. And I've got some of my colleagues from India and Pakistan on this call, and I wonder if they would agree. For me, I think we've worked closely as a team because we're all online together. We don't feel that distance, and that's been something that I think has been really special. So thank you, whoever put that. Patience, yes, absolutely. Questioning, preparation, a few for interaction there as well. Very much that sense. We had a school leader speak at our primary panel earlier in the week, and she said a lot of our students feel that IT is almost like a television. It talks to them, but they can't talk back. And helping them to communicate, to interact with us, with each other, so important. And collaboration, I can see now coming up there. So thank you so much for that. We're going to share the slides. We're going to share the video. We're going to share later a Padlet wall with you, so you'll be able to keep all of this. And I know that I'm going to be looking back over some of the wisdom that our delegates are sharing, our panelists are sharing over the next weeks and months. So thank you very much. We're going to move on now to listen to 3 really fantastic panelists that we have for you today. I'm looking forward to hearing from them. I know they have a lot of really interesting things to share. And I believe the first person is Tabinda. Tabinda Mazhar is our Senior Education Manager in Pakistan. And she is, well, I'll let her introduce herself actually. She's got a lot of experience in leadership and teaching that she'll be able to share with us. So Tabinda, I'm going to hand over to you. Please do introduce yourself and thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So as Anna said, I'm Tabinda. I am in Lahore, based in Lahore and from Pakistan. So I work with 650 plus Cambridge schools across Pakistan. I started as a teacher 22 years ago, and I've been a middle school English teacher myself. And lately I've been working for the past 16 years with teacher educators, teacher professional development, and very happy here today to speak to you about remote teaching and learning from the perspective of teachers as leaders. My role today is to kind of collate and share with you tips and strategies I have gathered from the teachers that we work with in Pakistan and the school leaders about the challenges they faced and about the tips they can share with others. So I'm going to be focusing on 3 things: collaboration, innovation, and impact on well-being. And for each of these, I will try to tell you little stories of, what happened and what tips they have to share. So just kind of trying to set the scene, what happened and what changed for teachers, for us educators overnight when the pandemic struck and we all had to shift. So first of all, the teachers feel that the classroom changed totally. From the physical, safe 4 walls of the classroom, everything became live, and most teachers had to do live sessions. Suddenly the audience changed in the sense that they were the students that they used to interact with every day in, day out. They couldn't adjust sometimes to them being there or not there. An addition in the audience were the parents, who were part and parcel became of the classroom. So one teacher actually quoted that in the beginning she felt as if she was talking to herself when she started. So that was a great change. The readiness level of our teachers also changed. Most schools are good, or teachers are good with EdTech tools, but switching completely and transforming to online teaching was some different experience for them. And overall, the whole dynamics of work, the management of the classroom, their teaching styles and tools, all of that changed. And I'm sure everyone will agree with me that these are the things that we all felt. So in these times, the first important thing that everybody has experimented with brought in a lot of innovation. Of course, lots of experimentation in trying out new tools and platforms, learning new things, not just tools, but how to teach them and integrate them. A lot of practices about classroom management, breakout rooms, using polls. I'm sure all of you have been doing that. So what was the learning out of that, and what are the tips that school leaders and teachers have shared when it comes to innovation? They feel that the most important thing is that teachers must be given the room to make mistakes, making students and parents partners in the process rather than being against them and trying to please make it one process. One teacher shared that it took her time to accept and adapt to the change that the time required. So the willingness to adapt and change is very, very important. Another thing she shared was taking small steps, not comparing yourself with anyone else, but your own progress. And most importantly, asking for help in times of innovation. You may not need to reinvent the wheel because there is already so much available, everywhere. The next important thing that came as a theme when it comes to remote teaching and learning has been collaboration. So school leaders especially shared that their staff and them, there was an all-time high, in collaboration. How, the learning, went from one person's sticky knowledge to shared knowledge, best practices sharing. One school shared how the younger staff members became mentors to the senior staff member in teaching technologies, but with a bargain of teaching skills. So, they were all helping each other out. The best thing I heard from a school was about, they talked about a sense of community and a belonging that just arose. So people shared, teachers shared, heads shared that it became less difficult and more acceptable to talk about problems, issues, and mistakes. This codependency of praising each other, seeking help from each other, made the teachers less insular, and staff meetings to school heads fields became very, very interactive. Last but not least, I'll just touch upon how it all, of course, we all are going through it even right now, the impact on the teachers' well-being in terms of our work-life balance totally getting disrupted. Some teachers shared how they felt a lack of confidence, although they had 20 years or more experience, but suddenly going live, coming under that scrutiny of pressure of managing expectations was very, very high. Some teachers felt, a great deal of stress where the students in the beginning were tricking them on live camera and they didn't know how to tackle that. Having said that, just going to wrap up by sharing a few things that I again collated about what the school heads can do and what, to make the teachers feel at ease and become better teachers at remote learning and teaching. Some people shared they started a support group just for the teachers to talk. Let them talk and listen to, so they said, let them talk and we listened to them. Another one shared that trusting teachers to get on with the job at hand was very, very handy for them, not going too hard on them, giving them the autonomy and the agency to do things, less policing and more support. So that was very important. There were teachers who shared how they felt the pressure of being observed online by the head walking in sometimes. So one head suggested that she started asking people when they want to be observed, and actually having a pre-chat about how the head can be part of the lesson and do something with the teacher rather than judging them. The heads also shared that taking anonymous feedback from students regularly, especially about what your teacher did very well today, and sharing it with the teachers to drive improvement really worked for them. One interesting thing that I really did, and our organization also does, is the staff GTs for virtual coffees, virtual birthdays, or just to have a laugh. So maybe starting off with your own story of how you messed up, with technology at a meeting can get everybody on board. So in short, all these little anecdotes or little tips are not, I'm not saying they're a big solution, but we know it's a bumpy ride and teachers have felt that they were thrown at the deep end in the beginning, but this year has transformed a lot in education. How we interact with students, the flexibility that has come, the comfort and confidence we've gained in technology, that has all made some progress. So no denying it has had an impact on teachers' well-being, but it seems that with support, collaboration, and sensitivity, we can make this journey significantly better. Thank you very much.
Tabinda, thank you so much. That's a really excellent start to our session. And I'd like to pass on now to Alka. Alka, please do introduce yourself, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say.
So thank you so much, Anna. It was very interesting hearing all the thoughts and tips from on keeping teachers' wellness in mind, which teachers are the pillars of all learning for students. So that was very important and enlightening. So warm greetings to everyone, and as Anna has introduced, I'm Alka Pandey from India. I'm heading the Bharati Vidyapeeth Rabindranath Tagore School of Excellence. We fondly call it BVRTSC. It's a reputed Cambridge affiliated school in the city of Pune in India. And I have around 28 years of experience in the field of education, teaching across university levels and different middle level, senior level in schools and across various international and national educational boards. I'm also a Cambridge accredited teacher trainer, and therefore have also been associated with a lot of professional development programs as mentors and trainers for teachers. So today I'll be focusing on the role of parents during the remote learning and how schools, and especially we as school leaders, can support them. School leadership during these times, especially during the early months of the pandemic, has been all about resilience, reorientation, and reinvention. The 3 R's is what I call for school leaders. So last year, by March 2020, in the context of our country, it was evident that the global pandemic had created an unprecedented challenge for school leaders. And most of the school leaders had never dealt with a crisis of this scale and this scope, and that too for this long. So challenges were arising very quickly, and both information and any resources or any known solutions were scarce. So we did not have any precedent or plans to fall back on. We were plunged into the remote model of teaching learning almost overnight. So this new the normal which we call is not only a different concept for the learners, but also for the parents and teachers. So we all know that there is a direct positive correlation between parent involvement and students' academic success. Hence, be it the traditional learning environment or the current distance learning situation, it is imperative for the parents to actively participate in their child's daily learning, especially in this online mode. Next slide, please. So if we can refer to the slide, so as per the OECD article of September 2020, attitude and dispositions toward learning are important drivers of students' educational achievements. In the context of online learning, we can say they can help students to incorporate more efficiently digital technologies and online tools into the learning process. These findings have also re-emphasized the point that learning attitudes are rooted in the support that students receive not only from the teachers, but from the families as well. As we started equipping and supporting our teachers, which we all were doing as school leaders, for model of teaching learning, we as a school community of together as leaders, teachers and parents, we realized that a much higher level of added engagement and support was now required from parents in remote learning. So as the teachers were requesting for more support and understanding from the parents were getting anxious on how can they discover the best role to play to support the child's learning. They also had serious apprehensions about how the learning will progress for their child in this remote model, because they had only seen in their context and for their child's context, there was no precedent to know how can a child learn through online and distance learning. And that was, more anxiety was more there at the pre-primary level and for the students who were there for qualifying examination, preparing for those. So when we started working on it, the first step which we worked on was strengthening relationship with the parents at the management and leadership level, as also on teachers level. So we started by encouraging and helping every role player, especially the teachers, to make a positive personal connection with every parent guardian, especially during the uncertainty surrounding the changes in this school year. So this was topmost on our list of actions. And then came sharing information about learning, all our plans. So it was aimed at reducing parent anxiety and creating a welcoming environment. So this was the next step, and it was towards building a strong school-home partnership. So in order to help both parents and students stay informed about evolving plans related to the remote learning, we looked at increasing our communication with the parents, attempting to find new and improved ways of communication. Then we started by interacting with parents at different levels, at the senior managerial level, class level, teachers level, through various channels, virtual meetings, using forms and surveys, emails, phone calls, text messages, using the student information system, the SIS as we call it, the learner management system, which actually proved very useful now in the remote phase for sharing classroom specific topics, what we were going to do, for easy access to learning resources for parents to use to support their child. So next slide, please, if we can go move on to that. Thank you. So may I, the communication channels which are there on the next slide, some of them which I'm sharing here and focusing on, the communication channels were used not only to share our evolving plans, but also to understand the parents' concern, so that it was a give and take, of information. So understanding the parents' concern leading to establishing and strengthening the trust and confidence. So in short, what we were trying to do, we were addressing their key questions around remote learning, such as what the school was doing, why we were doing this, how we were doing it, and when we were doing it. So we had online coffee meets for interaction of parents with the senior leadership and managements. So mostly it was at the start of the session, or if there were some changes which we were going to bring in mid-session. Then we arranged for tea with teachers at regular intervals, which gave our parents opportunities for receiving and discussing formal, informal feedback. Or we had the opportunity to hear their concerns, and then they had the opportunities of learning about their child's progress, the learning progress. We had counselor sessions which were conducted at regular intervals and to support individual parents and of course the students, and in group also to support parents to provide them guidance on managing and coping through these stressful times and supporting their student, the child at home. So daily grade-wise reflection sessions, these were incorporated into our day-to-day timetable. So daily grade-wise reflection sessions were conducted for parents to join in with their ward to discuss the concerns and then better understand any aspect of classroom learning where they had certain apprehensions or they wanted to know a little more about support resources. So we can say it was a kind of tutorial or extra guidance sessions for parents along with the students. We regularly shared updates on the kind of digital platforms, the type of digital platforms and the technical apps which we were going to use. So, or we were about to introduce in mid-session or any time in the classrooms. So in fact, we also held orientations and training sessions for the parents to help them understand the intended usage of these apps and platforms, and then also to provide them technical support in handling and supporting the students at their home if they had to navigate through certain elements of these apps. So curriculum walks were conducted at the start of the academic sessions, where we kind of mirrored or modeled the classroom teaching techniques, orienting the parents on lesson deliveries through videos, voiceover PPTs, how assessment and assignments would be conducted, how they would be assessed, how we would bring in and incorporate collaborative opportunities for the learners. So all that we mirrored through curriculum walks at the beginning of the session. Here I would like to refer to what Rhonda Blondie had, in her question and answer session had given a very, very, interesting and very valid advice to us, that it's very important to equip the parents with the right support and the resources to help them understand that it's the quality of resources and task which is important and not the quantity. So a strong communication culture, I strongly believe in this, begins at the top of any organization, and so too with the schools. And finding ways to establish and maintain good communication with our parents and students has never been more important. And the time and efforts we as school leaders, if we put in, will bring in the much needed support from the parents. Not only from the parents, of course, it will help support students and teachers through the parents. And this will be much appreciated by the parents, especially during these difficult times. And when these communications are regular, they are relevant, they are supportive, the parents and family members are more informed, they feel welcomed and included in the school community. So just wanted to share with everyone here that as we approach the end of the academic year, we observed that a high percentage of our school families had become more engaged with the school. Increased partnership between parent and teachers led to multifold increase in home assignment and completions. So submissions were on time, children were engaged. It also resulted in more engaged students in the classroom, which was proportional to the increased participation of the parents at home. So, and at the end, one of the most common reactions as we are approaching, we are almost, kind of winding up the academic session here in our school. We are inundated with appreciative mails and gratitudes, and which I think is the biggest reward a school and teachers can get from the parents. So I'm delighted at this opportunity. Thank you, Anna, to share my experience with all the school leaders who are present here through CSC platform. And I now hand over to Maxine and look forward to hearing her experience. So thank you so much. So I hand over to Maxine now.
Thank you, Alka. Hi, good morning and a good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maxine Lu. I'm the General Principal of Shanghai Shared Education Group. Just very briefly introduce our group. We are located mainly in Shanghai, but also nearby provinces. We own and manage 12 schools and 40 kindergartens. Among these 12 schools, 10 of them are Cambridge school members, community members, and I myself is a committee member of school management in Cambridge International, China. So this is a great opportunity for me to speak and share our experience with you. As you know that Shanghai and China were hit by the virus very early. So last semester, almost all the schools have to shift to online very quickly and unexpectedly. But this semester, we came back to school as the normal offline school life. But still, we try to have blended learning, both online and offline together. So today, I would like to share some different type of online learning in different stage of our school life. And also, I would like to take this opportunity really to thank the Cambridge International, their East Asian office that during last year, especially last several months, there's tremendous and enormous support and the resource and the platform that Cambridge International provided to us as leaders, teachers in this very difficult time. So thank you very much. It's really very great help. So as I mentioned, that I would like to share with you this practice so-called AIR class in Shanghai. Version 1.0 was happened in April 2020, this time last year. It was very difficult at the very beginning of this situation that at the very beginning, we tried to just provide some online platform for teachers that they just simply do their online interaction with their students. Then we find it very difficult, very challenging. Their lessons become open lesson every time, not only the students, but also their parents, their grandparents, their uncles, aunties are all watching the teachers teaching every bit of the lesson. If you know about the Chinese family, you will know what I mean. So many teachers feel very frustrated at that time. So the city has done something really useful. They've invited experienced teachers to teach 20 minutes through the television and online platform for every lesson. This means altogether 5,500 lessons in 41 subjects in various age groups. The city of Shanghai has 1.5 million students, so they can all got the opportunity to watch 20 minutes each lesson from selected mature teachers presentate the knowledge part. And then their own teacher, their own school teacher or class teacher will use online platform to interact with the students. That helped the teachers greatly. So they don't have to worry that every minute they are watched by parents, the families. They feel it's much easier for them to organize high quality interaction with the students, question and answer, etc. So that was the very early stage when we all at home and do online teaching and learning. And then in the last September, we call it version 2.0. From September 2020 on, most of us came back to campus, come back to the normal school life. Do we need to stop this online teaching? There was argument, but eventually we decided to continue. So these version 2.0 is actually upgraded from version 1.0. Some of the lessons are still live. This can support those can't go to school. For example, they are still stuck overseas. But at this time, you can, if you go to school, you still can use this to review, or you can select a level that meets students' individual needs. Say you are grade 2 students, but your English or your math is really advanced. So you can go to the television or online platform and select grade 4 or grade 5 math or English lesson to study. So that helped the students. We also develop a function of on-demand play. These can support our teachers' professional development. Say a young teacher, an inexperienced teacher, he really wants to see how you teach that particular science lesson or literature lesson better. So he can go to that particular year or lesson or test to see how experienced teacher teach that lesson. So you see from 1.0 to 2.0, there's upgraded functions that develop. So right now, all these 1.5 million students come back to the school, but believe or not, there are still 200,000 students or teachers daily watch the television that we actually prepared for when we are still closed. So to conclude this experience, I would like to suggest that do not waste every video you provide when you are not able to go to school. These videos, materials, are lessons or are valuable resources that you can use even when teachers and students come back to the school. It can be used differently, but still useful. So I share this practice, and hopefully that it can help you to think about it a little bit differently. Thank you, Anna.
And thank you so much, Maxine, as well. And thank you to all three of our panelists there. I can see from the chat how valuable people have found those, and there was a lot, as always in these panels, there was a lot that I've learned from that. It's what I love about being part of Cambridge. We learn so much from each other. And on that theme, now is a chance for everyone to share some practical ideas together. We're going to share a Padlet wall, and what we'd like you to do is to share your practical tips for remote or blended learning. Again, you can either share that in terms of things you would recommend for teachers, or things that you would do as a leader to lead that strategically across a school, and either is fine. We will have a little bit of time to discuss what you've said, but this is really about having something that you can all take away. We will keep this open afterwards. You'll be able to go and have a look, so that we're going to build up a really strong collection of advice from each other in our community. So please do go to that Padlet wall. The link is there on the slide, but I'm certain, because our events team is so efficient, there it is already. Yes, I can see that that link is there in the chat. So please do go to that wall, start sharing your ideas. We're going to share the Padlet screen here. You'll see loads of ideas coming up at once, and we'll start each of us panel, just warning you here, we're going to pick out one that we would particularly like everyone to see. So let's all watch that wall. The link, yeah, the link is just above you in the chat there from the events team, and there it's come through again. Wonderful. Looking forward to seeing what you have to say. I'm going to give you a moment to put some ideas up. You haven't lost sound. I'm just giving you some thinking time. Wow, it's fantastic to see all these coming through. Thank you so much. I'm just going to pause for about 1 more minute to let you put your ideas up, and then we'll start discussing those. So I'm going to start with picking out something that a lot of you have mentioned, and I'm going to tell a story from when I was quite a new teacher, and I'd worked really hard, and I was really proud. It was quite a big centre. We were focusing on A-levels. We had 10 of us teaching history, which is my subject, and I was really proud to see that my students had scored more highly than the students of some other teachers. I thought, hey, great, I'm so good. I've done this in an early year of my teaching. And my head of department wanted to see me, and he was not calling me to say well done. He was calling me to say, what have you been doing that you have not shared? And I thought that was so powerful. It's never left me, that what he wanted to make sure was that we all succeeded and we shared our good practice. So I was so thrilled to see so many comments here about getting staff to share what they have to say, to talk to each other, to collaborate, to share their ideas, to praise their ideas. So much that we do as teachers feels like we're doing things on our own, and actually all our teachers are working as a unit. So it was great to see so many comments there about how we as leaders can encourage our teachers to share and to collaborate. So that's the one I'm going to pick out. Maxine, I can see you're already on screen, so I'm going to ask you if you could pick out something for you.
Yes, I've seen a lot of interesting comments here. Very interesting in reading, etc. That's one thing, keep experimenting and innovating to make lessons interesting. I think it doesn't matter if it's online teaching or offline teaching. Students will see their teacher trying, and our teachers will also enjoy these kind of new trying. So I agree with this comment very much, and I definitely see when my colleagues, teachers, they come back from online teaching back to the normal teaching and learning. They don't just simply give up all those they learn from online teaching. They became much better teacher with more tools that can make their classroom interesting. So I do encourage colleagues that when you come back to the school, to the normal teaching, please keep encouraging your teacher to use these tools, these strategies they learn from this online practice. Thank you.
I've realised I'm talking and I've done that thing. Then I'm on mute. So I'm going, Alka, and she's not responding, and that's why she can't hear me. Alka, would you like to share something, please?
Yeah, I was wondering what's going wrong. Is my connection?
I've got this lovely friendly panel that are just being very polite and just watching me talk. Alka and then Tabinda.
Definitely, Anna. There are a lot of interesting ideas and points and suggestions coming and practical tips. Something which I'm picking up from here is about feedback. Ongoing feedback from staff to parents to students, among the staff, from the mentors to the staff to each other is something like feedback is actually what drives learning, and it's very important, especially during this time when we are not able to have those physical presence where subtle actions or gestures are also kind of feedback. So I really agree with all these points that a continuing feedback, positive, motivating, relevant feedback is something which is a takeaway from whatever ideas are popping up. And of course, I agree with what Maxine had picked up and what Rhonda had said, that thinking teacher is one of the best teachers, So thinking teachers, thinking students, thinking, school leaders is what I'm looking at. And it works, innovation, experiment, everything works based on the feedback. What's going well, what could be better. And as trainers and mentors, and this is what we look at every time when we are through a program or in the midst of any professional development program. So everything is based on feedback, and I can see so many of them talking about it. So that's very interesting.
Thank you. And Tabinda?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So I would like to pick on this kind of a theme emerging where a lot of teachers have suggested that you should look at technology as supplementing the teaching, not replacing it. So although we've been using technology for a long time, but it may sound cliched, but sometimes we kind of get swayed by the technologies, the apps that Jamboard, Flipgrid, ExamNet, so many people have mentioned so much. But again, I will connect to what Rhonda said at that point. We are still teaching human beings, and it is still a classroom. So the important thing is to remember that what we are doing with them, yes, technology is just a tool, but the more important thing is meaningful construction, productive work that they're doing. So, and I'm really happy to see that so many people have suggested that. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, I can see that you're generating ideas from each other. Those Padlet posts are still moving, and I'm really thrilled with that. And please do continue that conversation after this session. This session will cut us off just after 10 o'clock because it is an hour session. The technology will moderate that for us. But this Padlet will continue. Please do continue to use that to share good practice. It's such a powerful tool. If we could go on to the slide for the Q&A, please. We're going to have 10 minutes now for questions and answers. And please do post your questions in the chat. There are some really interesting questions coming through here. And the first one is, somebody has asked for advice, particularly on how we teach those older students. So those ones in high school, those A-level students that we have. How do we encourage our teachers to be really effective for that older age group? And would anyone like to pick that up from the panel?
Anna, I would like to just add what we have been doing with our student was like, again, going back to Rhonda's question answer session, equipping the learners with a lot of resources and using the online platform from bringing in a lot of collaborative tasks where they had chance to discuss using Google Drive, having them share their ideas on the doc, which was monitored, the breakout rooms were arranged, so giving them a lot of collaborative opportunities. It was more of flipped teaching where the resources were provided to the students, they went through it, when they came to the class, it was more of time for interaction, doubt solving, collaboration, and thinking tasks were there. So the rubrics were shared with the children. We gave them more autonomy, and of course practical work was something which was more demonstration led and dependent on the situation in the city, where we guided the students what all they could have at home. A list was shared well in advance, and they followed the demonstration. Sometimes they videographed themselves doing some experiments and shared it with the teachers and the friends and received feedback on it. So these are some small strategies which we followed in our school.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to pick up on that before we go to the next question?
If I could just pitch into what Alka
yes.
was saying, I second her, and I think that the giving ownership to the students, especially when they are adults, and treating them as such, that all changes the rules of the game a lot. So I've seen a lot of teachers who give more responsibility or give kind of more flexibility so that students become in charge of their own learning. That really helps them and gets them to achieve the lesson objectives also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go into some other questions because quite a lot of questions are coming through. So I'll probably ask 2 panelists for each question. We've got a question here, which I think is really interesting, which is how, and I'm going to broaden it a little bit because somebody was asking particularly, I think, about marking, but I think it's a question we could answer more broadly. How lenient should we be with students during the pandemic? So if they are struggling to access a lesson, for example, for all sorts of reasons, should we be giving them extra leniency because things are very difficult, because they're maybe at home and maybe things are harder there? I think it's a really, really interesting question and it fits in a lot of pastoral care. So what do people feel about that? Maxine, would you be interested in taking that first?
Yes, actually we did experience that when students just about to came back to school, both students, parents and teachers, they feel anxious and frustrated. So they worried that they have been behind. And when they come back to the school, and we did see that some of the students, they learn very well in this online period. So they make a lot of extraordinary progress, while others, some normally good students, they actually left behind. So I think there's 2 things we can do. On one hand, we need to ease parents and the students, don't worry it too much. The school will work out strategies. When they come back to the school, we will help them. So no need to worry about this. On the other hand, we really need to give our teachers some professional development because they did meet even wider differentiation needs when the students just came back to the school. So we organize a lot of discussion and practice, see how we're gonna to support these students with bigger varieties and differentiation needs students. So to answer your question, I think because online learning is really a new thing to everyone, as school leaders, let's not be too strict on those marks or those outcomes of periodical tests, etc. Let's be flexible, but on the other hand, we need to support the teachers with further tools and strategies when they have to handle students with wider range of studies.
Thank you, Maxine. I'm going to exercise chair's privilege here and say something too, which My specialism is what we call in the UK post-16 education, which is A-levels basically. And we would often get students who had a difficult situation. We had over 1,000 students in each year group, so you would always get students who were struggling. And what we would try to do is be very supportive of the student and try and work out every way of understanding their situation, of helping them, of giving them the support. But obviously they're going to be taking examinations. They have to reach a certain standard. So it was very much about helping them get there and finding them different routes rather than just saying, oh, don't worry, but really trying to work with them as a whole student. And I know that that was something they very much appreciated, that we understood, we empathized, but our focus then was on helping them to cope with whatever situation they were dealing with and to help them to catch up. So that was our approach, and it sounds, Maxine, as if we have a very similar view on this here. We have another question with a slightly different angle here, which is about the wider schooling that students are involved in. How do we encourage students to remain involved in community service, extracurricular activities, and things like that that will keep a holistic education during this period? I think that's a really interesting question. Alka, what do you think about that?
Anna, as you rightly said, it's an interesting question, and we as teachers and leaders needed to incorporate it, especially of the extracurricular activities, because students were spending a lot of time sitting in front of the screen, even offline when they had to refer to a lot of resources online or complete their task. So we did bring in a lot of guided exercises for them, which went through newsletters and some resources which they could refer to. We involved them into dramatics. This is talking about extracurricular activities, doing some yoga for them on certain days where they were free to join in. Nothing was compulsory, these extracurricular, but it did emphasize for the students that it was an important part for them to stay physically active, to be involved, to be kind of stay in touch with each other through informal modes. Lot of physical exercises we kept sharing with them through offline videos which were being shared, involving them into so like it's a community services also was what we did. We invited schools from various countries. Some students from Australia joined our students to talk about COVID warriors and how to support them, and we had a gratitude program, a musical evening in which the students were involved from both the schools. So these were some of the ways where we kept students involved and stay connected to why it was important to talk about caregiving, to be having a sympathy and empathetic approach to what everybody else and these tough times.
Thank you, Alka. That's really helpful. I've just seen the time. We have 2 minutes left before the end of this session. So what I want to do is ask each panelist to give me a very, very quick answer. It's the same question I asked Rhonda at the end of her Q&A. We've had people in the chat talking quite rightly about integrating things back as we return to school. What one thing would you keep, something you've learned from online learning over the last year that you feel you would like your teachers to keep doing or that you will be keeping doing? Very, very quick fire answers here. We'll start with Tabinda. What one thing do you think we should keep, Tabinda?
Flexibility in planning, delivering, that's it.
Thank you. Maxine?
Communication. No matter how busy we as principal are, we need to make sure that all stakeholders are on the same page about changes and challenges.
Thank you. And Alka?
It's all about strengthening relationships and maintaining them. So upping the communication, with the parents, with the students, with the teachers, so having an open communication channel. This is something which I'm definitely going to keep.
Thank you so much. And interestingly, you all talked about the wider way we support online learning and not about the tools. And I think that's probably something that I would want to keep from the last year, is understanding online learning is not about the tools. It's about how we use it, how we communicate. So everybody, thank you so much. I'm so sorry that we've come to the end, because I could keep going for at least another hour here. There's so many interesting questions. Really sorry if we didn't get to yours. Thank you for your Padlet contributions. Thank you to our panel. Thank you too to our events team who have been so supportive in making sure that we can have this session today and helping us every step of the way through this session. So thank you to all of you. And I look forward to interacting with you, I hope, face to face or in a blended way at some point in the future. Thank you.